Many years ago, my first husband and I had a bad marriage and a bad divorce. And during that time, I blamed him for everything. He had his problems, his drinking problems, but I was certain that I was right and he was wrong and all of that. And he eventually remarried and someone that I knew, and he called me very innocently and said, would you like to speak to her? And he put her on the phone, and I said, I have nothing to say to you. And I was evil. And finally, years later, I think I grew up and realized what I contributed to the bad marriage, that I needed to take responsibility for that. So I tried to contact him, but his wife wouldn't let me talk to him, and I didn't blame her, but that's what happened. Well, then he died of a brain tumor, and I really was filled with remorse for something terrible, and it just really hung on me. And so a year later, I'm in a faraway country working, and I was walking in my living room, and I was transported to a big hall about the size of a football stadium, and two ladies had escorted me into the hall, and there was hundreds of people walking around, and they escorted me over to where a man was sitting on the arm of a chair. And I went up to him and I said, Harry, I thought you died. And he said, no, I'm fine. And he looked young, and his hair was brown, not gray, and he was slim and very young looking. And I said, well, I must be dreaming. He said, no, I'm not. Here, touch me. And so I touched him, and I said to him, well, then I must have dreamt that you died. And he said, well, I'm just fine. Look at me. And I'm doing fine. And I found myself back in my living room, and I wasn't sleeping. It was the middle of the day, and I was actually standing up, and my knees got weak after that. And I kind of hobbled to the couch and sat down, and I had no idea what reality was, because it was just like I was talking to him in the next room. I couldn't call anybody because I was an 8-hour difference from where my family was, and they would have been sleeping, and it'd been weird for me to call them and say, did Harry really die or what? And I was very confused, and it took me a really long time to sort out what the reality of the situation was. And I went somewhere, and I don't know where, but that's where I went, and I came back, and it was probably a matter of, felt like about a 10-minute interval. That was the impression I got, is that he essentially wanted me to know that I hadn't harmed him, and that everything turned out the way it was supposed to. And that's how I took it. And it gave me a lot of relief, because I'd had a lot of pain knowing that I had never been able to apologize. It makes me think that there really is a place after death. It may not be that place that I went to, and I'm thinking that maybe it was a bunch of people who were doing similar things to what my ex-husband was doing, like maybe meeting up with their relatives who are still living or something. I'm not real sure what it was, but I do know that it provided me with an opportunity to go somewhere that was out of this earth, and another place that existed. Not to wait to make things right. Once you realize your part in past experience, and if you were in the wrong, to fess up to it as soon as possible, so you don't regret it and feel the pain of your own misdeeds. I'm pretty convinced that there is more going on after death. After my parents died, my father, after he died, his bedroom door would open and close, and we thought someone was in the house. My husband went and got a gun, and we looked around the house and couldn't find anybody. And that happened about 4 times. And then it finally stopped after that. At first, we thought maybe it was just the wind, and then it happened again, then happened again, and it happened again. So, um, and it was my dad's room. We've also had that experience. So I feel like it's not over. I've tried to be a better person. I told myself that if I ever remarried, that I would treat my husband with respect and love, and I would accept responsibility for my wrongdoings. And I've done that. I remarried. I've been married for 23 years to a wonderful man, and I let him know it every day. And I would never speak to him the way I spoke to my first husband back in the day. So it has made a big impact on me. I had a dear friend, and she and her husband was a doctor, and she and I worked as nurses together. And they were having a terrible fight, and they were texting and emailing each other these horrible things over and over again. And I finally sat down and told her that, when you're young, you don't think before you speak, and your words hurt. The two of you need to agree to disagree, and then get on with your family life. You love your children, and all of that. And she took the advice, and they've been together for uh over 35 years now. And but there was a point where it almost came tumbling down. So I feel like I've been able to share my experience with other people, and tell them, when you get married, you're young, your prefrontal cortex still is not developed, and you're still acting like a child. And it's it you have to just kind of deal with that.